Let's go back to storytelling.
Yeah. So.
Like, I remember reading, I was on my own studying philosophy and physics in the mid-90s, trying to figure out my career path. And there was a nice quote in an Aristotle book about, a well-written drama arouses fear and pity, and thus achieving a catharsis of such emotions. So what you were saying about leaving people with something at the end, something to talk about, right? And maybe if it's a drama that you want to write and produce and direct, it makes people think about that topic. So it kind of exposes the elephant in the room in a lot of cases where they're like, well, we saw it as a drama. We should really talk about that. So I could see that for storytelling purposes in a drama, how you make people want to possibly talk about a subject.
And how do you feel like you could best approach this method of leaving people with interpretations of their own?
Well, I guess a lot of movies are allegories. You don't necessarily have to hammer people over the head with the idea. You can get them to kind of read between the lines and think about the storyline and maybe put the dots together themselves rather than connecting dots for people and making things really neat. Like Terry Gilliam had once said in an interview, he had a problem with Hollywood productions where you wrap up the story in a neat little package for the audience at the end. You don't let them think too much about what's going to happen next. You kind of wrap it up. Here's a neat little package. Here you go. Okay, now the movie's done and we can go home. But films with a more of a European sensibility would challenge the viewer and get them to think about it and talk about it maybe over a coffee or a piece of pie or a beer or something at the end of the movie. Where they go, let's go. I'd like to discuss this movie. As opposed to, well, that Transformers movie was pretty loud and smashy and big. Okay, I liked it.
Was there any film in general that you feel like you could have a coffee conversation any day about?
Yeah. Well, two actually. One is The Descent, which was Neil Marshall. He made a movie called Dog Soldiers, which was a werewolf movie, like a modern type of werewolf movie. Really interesting story. And at the Suspect video store where we used to go to get videos, I used to look for obscure things. Like, I don't want to go for the typical Hollywood blockbuster thing. Maybe sometimes, but generally I want to find something that nobody's watching so I could watch it. And they had this sign on Dog Soldiers, amazing movie, whatever. And I'm like, oh, great, I'll give it a shot. And I'm like, this is a really well put together werewolf film. Like, it's different. And then I heard, there was a student of mine actually said that, he came out with a new movie called The Descent. And I said, The Descent? Yeah, he goes, yeah, it's a new horror movie by him. And I was like, oh, well, I have to see that. So I was looking around for it online and I found a copy on eBay and it came from Malaysia. It wasn't here in North America, The Descent. And I put it in the DVD player, watched it. I'm like, this is a really good horror film. And the ending was like, oh, it's okay, that's clever. That's clever. It made you think about, okay, how did it lead up to that? The woman's in the cave. She's like, it's about cave divers or explorers, spelunkers, whatever the term is. This group of girlfriends goes down into a cave system and goes cave diving and exploring. But they went on an unmapped cave system. And they weren't alone, but that's all I can say. So at the end, the woman's crawling out, and I'm not going to ruin it because I'd like you to see it and watch that ending if you can. Like, it's a good scary film. But then it came to North America, and I was like, oh, cool, The Descent's coming to North American cinemas. This is great. Watched it, and I was like, that's not the ending. What did they do to the ending? That's not what was supposed to happen at the ending. Not on my DVD copy. Well, there's two different endings. One for North America. Right? And not only that, there was a movie called The Vanishing, a Dutch movie. I think the Dutch term was, Dutch title was Voorloos or something like that. Spoorloos. And the director had made this kind of what looked like an indie movie, lower budget indie movie, had a really challenging ending for me. So there was a huge twist. This guy's wife goes missing at a rest stop in Europe. And he spends like a few years trying to track her down, what happened to her. He wants to know what happened to her. He's not going to, live properly unless he knows what happened to his wife. He's just so like, what the hell happened to her? I have to know. And so there was that strong emotional part of it where he was trying to figure it out. So he put signs up, whatever, all over the place. Eventually he gets contacted by this guy and says, I know what happened to your wife. So he goes to meet this guy, and this guy's like, well, I can't just show you, or I can't just tell you. Like, you're going to have to follow my commands, basically. And the last command that he had, he drove him down this country road or whatever, and the guy's like really curious, what the hell happened to her, right? And the audience is like, is she living? Is she dead? What the hell happened to her? And so the guy stops the car and he goes, one last thing. You got to get in the trunk. And the guy's like, what? You got to get in the trunk. And now he's like, what did I get myself into? What? And he's trying to make a decision. So he gets out of the car and he's freaking out. Like, what do you do? And so I won't tell you what he did. But the ending was like, oh my God. Enough to talk about. Right. And then the same director got asked by whoever in Hollywood to redirect the same movie. Right. But with better known actors. Jeff Bridges was in it. Kiefer Sutherland, I think, was in it. So you got these top name, people in the movie. And now it's an American production. And you watch the ending and you're like, oh, come on. You're just handing me the neat little package, just like Terry Gilliam said. And I was like, really? That's not challenging. Now you're like, you wipe your hands and you go, well, I'm done with that movie. But the Dutch version, it never leaves you. It haunts you. Because it's that type of ending, not the neat little packaged ending, right?
Do you think that it would make it easier if you left an ending where the audience can formulate their own opinion? Do you think it would be a little easier to make a sequel out of that?
That's a good point. I think so, yeah. Because I would say like an Inception. Not that I think he's going to do an Inception 2. Who knows? Christopher Nolan, great filmmaker. But Inception, big blockbuster film, but the ending... Do you remember that? Did you ever seen it? Okay, so they go into, he has to go into the dream state to extract information from somebody. So basically, they're in dream world most of the time. And dream world time is different than real world time. You know when you fall asleep for 15 minutes, right? And it feels like an hour? Same thing. When you're in dream world, depending on the level of dreaming you're in, time is completely different. I've seen it twice. The first time I saw it was with a friend. We thought, let's go out to like Mississauga or Etobicoke or something. Etobicoke. And because it's like opening weekend, it's going to be busy in Toronto. Well, it was packed in Etobicoke. So I watched Inception the first time like this on the big screen. And I was just like, I couldn't wrap my head around the story. I'm like, I got to see this again. So I bought the disc and I watched it again. And I was like, oh man, you clever bugger. That's a good story. And the ending... so they have basically to know if you're in a dream or not, you have a token of some sort. So let's say this is my dream token. You know if you're in a dream or not if you got the token and you're aware of it, let's say. So there was a token in the very, very end frame was one of those tokens. I won't ruin it for you, but it made you go, oh crap, are they still in dream world or not? So you're left with that. You don't know. And people would have discussions. It's like the end of The Sopranos. I'm not sure if you ever watched The Sopranos, but when it first came on air, I didn't watch it. People kept saying, oh, you got to watch The Sopranos. So I watched a few episodes. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty, serious mob stuff and people are getting hurt. I'm not comfortable with all of that type of stuff, but it is a good story. The last episode, they're in a diner and they went through so much mob-wise, right? This family. And they're in a diner. And, the mother comes to the diner, the son is there, and then the daughter's on her way in, and she opens the door of the diner, we think, and the little bell of the diner door goes bing, 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 and Tony Soprano looks up, and it cuts to black. So you're like, okay, so everybody talked about that and said, what do you think happened? Do you think it was like a mob guy to come in and did a hit? Was it his daughter that actually came in? Who was he looking at that last frame, cutting to black? I don't think anybody's ever done anything like that on TV. Not that I ever saw.
Thank you. Talking about movies, I like to ask about sci-fi.
Yeah?
What's your take about sci-fi movies?
What's my take on sci-fi?
Yeah. What about Total Recall?
I saw Total Recall, and I really liked it when it came out in the theaters. I mean, this is when Arnold Schwarzenegger was like, it was about him on screen, really. I thought it was really cool. I really liked that story. I like, I like when people go to other worlds and explore like what the other world is like, or if they spend time on Mars, etc., or when you're traveling through space. I love sci-fi movies, but I like sci-fi movies with a good story, like not just for the sake of being sci-fi. Like Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill were in this one called Event Horizon. And it was about the space. It's all centered on the spaceship, and they're trying to figure out what happened on the, I think it was the Event Horizon spaceship. It's kind of like a ghost story in a way as well. Very similar to the first Star Trek movie, where they tracked down this ship called V'ger. I'm not sure if you heard of the first Star Trek movie. Anyways, V'ger is actually, it was worn out spelling of Voyager. So, and there's an interesting story behind it. But going back to something like Event Horizon, I really like the story. I like to go to worlds where I can't go. So visually, I like to go to those worlds. So I like to travel through space. I want to see what their perception of what's a spaceship and what's the future going to be. And what is a TV screen going to look like, or a monitor screen in the future, and why? But I like solid stories. And I think a better story was Pitch Black. You ever see Pitch Black with Vin Diesel? That came out in 1999, I think, or 2000. I think it was 2000. But Pitch Black, it was more than a sci-fi movie. It was like a character study, where you could talk about the characters afterwards and not just the creatures. There is a creature feature for sure, because they go to this planet. They crash land on this planet. And as Radha Mitchell, the character, I forget her, she was like, when the captain died in his sleep pod because they had debris come through the hull of the ship and it punched through his chest and it killed him, so he flatlined. Then she pops out of her pod with another guy who's going to operate the ship, and she realizes that the captain's dead. Now she's in charge. So she's got to land the ship. So she's trying to land this ship, and it's swayed out of its route, and it's going to crash land on this mysterious planet. And then she's, it's this long, the ship, let's say, and there's sections. She keeps letting the sections go one by one so she can, land properly, flatly, because the nose was going up too much because it's too heavy in the back. So she's like, I got to get the nose down to land, otherwise we're all going to die. So she lets the first section go. And the guy who's in another, booth of the ship communicating with her said, did you just purge something? I got to get the nose down, otherwise the ship's going to crash. So she lets another one go. And he's like, you better hang on, don't let them all go. And so she's about to let the last section of the ship go, because it's connected like a train almost, but spaceship. And there's people in there, and they're all in their sleeping pods. They have no idea what's going on. And same with Vin Diesel, who's the bad guy. He's he's the one that the cop is bringing to a prison planet, basically. And now she's about to let them go. And he prevents her. He blocks the thing and says, you can't kill those people. And she's like, I don't want to die for them. So she wants to save her own self so she can, whatever, she's going to survive on this planet alone, I guess, with this other guy and kill all those people. So she tries to do it, but he blocked it. And then she's like, damn it. So now she has to hurry up and land, and she crash lands, and one guy gets killed, but everybody else survives. And they're thanking her. Thank you for saving our life. Thank you for saving our life. And she's like, meanwhile, in her head, it's like, I was going to kill you all. Now you're thanking me. So she felt bad. So one of the twists was that as they're, basically what happened in a nutshell is there's two suns, and there's going to be a major eclipse where there's no sunlight for a while on the planet. And it happens every 22 years or something like that. So they found this model in this workshop somewhere, and they're like, oh, so they're twisting the model around going, oh my God, every 22 years is like a complete eclipse, total blackout. Holy shit, we got to get back to the ship and repair it and get off this planet. Well, it starts getting darker and darker and darker, and the creatures start coming out. They live underground, but they start coming out and attacking them. So now they got to survive through the bringing these energy cells from one ship to another to get off the planet. Then there's one point where she redeems herself, and I like that writing. I know it's like sci-fi, and the window dressing is like sci-fi creature feature, but she basically, made peace with herself in a way and redeemed herself so the other people could now get to the ship and survive. So it was good writing like that. The sequel is called Riddick. And then it became more about Riddick, the Vin Diesel character. But the first one was a good, solid sci-fi story. The second one was eye candy. It was action. It was like, yeah, that's really neat, but the substance was low. So Pitch Black, that was awesome space flick.
When you say eye candy, I definitely understand what you mean. A lot of viewers love a beautiful screen, right? Beautiful visuals. But do you think that there is a fine line between just beauty in film and visual storytelling?
Sometimes there is, because some directors have a style where it might look like eye candy, but it's more actually style. We talked about Ridley Scott yesterday. There's a lot of eye candy in like Blade Runner, but he's got a visual style at the same time. So there is a fine line between just showing it because it looks cool, as opposed to, no, I'm creating this world and this is what the world looks like. So there's a gray area too. We don't know what's on the director's mind all the time, or producer's mind, what they want.
So talking about those stories and the science around sci-fi movies, do you think they have been influencing the society and the technology in general? Because watching some sci-fi movies back in the days, talking about the future, most of the things that projected in movies, like in the early 80s, are actually happening now. Mm-hmm. And talking about sci-fi movies is about science and fiction, making it in reality. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the series of James Bond that talks about fun driving cars. Will you categorize like James Bond series as sci-fi action, or what can you see around that?
No, I say spy thriller action movies, James Bond, pretty much. I mean, there is futuristic things that they give him, like gadgets and stuff like that. So that aspect of it is sci-fi, but they're not sci-fi movies. They're billed as action movies. I mean, a James Bond is an action thriller type of thing, right? It's a ride, it's a rush, right? But going back to like looking at something like THX 1138, and how in the future everybody will be the same and they'll have to take their drugs and emotion is going to be banned, or too much emotion anyway, and you're going to focus on building robots, so robot polishers. George Lucas had a vision about the future based on society, what was happening in society, much like bands like the band Devo, who was famous for the song Whip It. Their music was basically a philosophy. A lot of people think they're just quirky art students who picked up instruments and banged out raw tunes in the 70s. They were worldwide known now, right? And now they're cool, and people will show up at their shows. A lot of people used to laugh at them because they're so goofy. But they had a philosophy. Their Devo is short for de-evolution. Humankind is in the process of de-evolution. And if you watch the movie My Dinner with Andre, the one guy, Andre, starts talking about the last real humans were born in the 60s. I found that interesting, like humanity is completely changing, right? And sometimes there's lots of theories out there, like people would call them conspiracy theories or whatever, about how movies plant seeds to get people used to certain things, like tracking and surveillance. This film I'm working on now, I know it's just me in it, and it's a solo project, but I really, really want it to mean something, and I really want to do it right. I got to get all the shots, and so far it's good. I actually got a toilet bowl shot the other day because it's going right into showing you're being surveilled 24/7. And this one character has to wear these glasses, and it records, and it measures his biometrics and everything, because he refused to get the implant in his hand and the tracking system in his veins and through the vessels of his body. There's a tracking system, and there's a transmitter receiver in the hand, basically. People in Sweden right now have that. They can open a Pepsi thing and take out a Pepsi, and it's like it credits their account, right? And then there's this digital currency that's coming up too. Anyways, with the social credit score and all that stuff going on in China with their millions of cameras, if you do something wrong in society, your social credit score goes down. So if you jaywalk, I forget what city, but if you jaywalk, that your credit score goes down, and you can't access certain things. And they'll shame you by putting your face on a big television in public. Imagine that.
How do you feel like these futuristic films can condition people for the future?
It plants the seed to get people used to what's happening. So when it happens, now that's a big conspiracy theory that a lot of people believe in, about how it's getting people used to the idea, to accept it. It becomes normal because somebody stated it. So not all filmmakers are doing it for that reason, but there is a theory that there's a lot of Hollywood productions and TV shows that are doing this to prepare people for the inevitable mass surveillance in this case. And I'm doing it only because it's my vision of what's going to happen in 10 years based on everything I've learned in the past, 15 years. I have a vision of this is how it's a very plausible vision, I think. But if you don't want to wear the chip and get the surveillance system in your body, you got to wear the glasses. So the guy wears the glasses. Everything he does is recorded. If he doesn't wash his hand, his health score goes down or whatever, his credits go down. So it shows him going into the bathroom. He's got all these cameras all over the house watching everything he does, right? And anybody who's got the chip doesn't have to wear the glasses. So when it shows him going in the bathroom, opening the toilet, so it's monitoring everything you do. And after he uses the toilet, like I don't go so far as to show anything happening in the toilet, but the monitor comes up and it goes like analyzing his urine. Yeah, analyzing anything he's deposited in the toilet, going, you eat too much of this, you should eat more of this, therefore you can't buy hamburgers this week. And too much protein in your blood. Sorry, you can't buy hamburgers. And a lot of people are afraid that the central bank digital currency, that's the World Economic Forum are talking about, they're worried about how you can be shut off. I think that's the biggest fear of people, to be like, do you want to be surveilled? Like everything you do.
This movie, Downsize, and the sequel.
What's that?
Downsize. It's about people downsizing, like the world in general.
Oh, I've heard of it. I've heard of it. Yeah.
Like they can actually shrink human population to very, very little just to save the earth. And according to some people, conspiracy theory around that movie, that is actually true, that most of us are actually downsized. That is why we see some wonders of the world that they're so big and it looks so perfectly like there was a giant existing before us. So what do you think about such conspiracy theory connected to movies?
I don't doubt that there's a lot of things that we don't know about what's happening behind the curtain. I there are a lot of plans. You can watch World Economic Forum videos and they talk about it. They talk about how by 2024 they want to basically be able to hack human beings. One guy his name is Noah something. He's going on and on. He has all these speeches about how human beings are now hackable animals. Like, we will know more about you than you know about yourself, or the AI will know more about you than you know about yourself because you're being hacked. The question is how, and people are like, what the heck does this mean? But then other people are saying, we'll know every transaction you're going to do in a few years. We'll know everything you purchase, and it's going to help us. And then another guy gets up and he starts talking about carbon footprint. When you buy something, your carbon footprint will be recorded saying, this is how much you contributed to climate change. And so as a guilt thing, where you're like, oh, I better not buy as many whatever, because I better not drive today. So when this character in my movie goes to his bike, his potential, like his numbers turn green, meaning if you take your bike, they're going to go high. Okay, they're going to go higher. And then he decides, I'm going to take the car. He goes to the car, it turns red and the numbers go lower. The moment he starts the car, the numbers drop. Your carbon footprint goes down. And then when he takes the bike, the numbers go up. So your numbers are constantly going up and down, your different credit scores and whatever. Anyway.
We're surrounded with these mixed perceptions of what the future will look like. We're almost conditioned by them. We think that it gives us more of a solid idea of what will happen in the future. Do you think that this can be put in a negative stance? Do you think that, let's say, because there are lots of murder shown on films nowadays, do you think that that's going to increase the fear in the world for the future?
I think anytime you show something negative, it's going to increase fear. Fear is unfortunately what does allow people to be controlled. Fear. If you're constantly in fear, that's a way of social control, right? You just keep people in fear, 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 fear. You know, and then the news knows this. The news is owned by huge corporations that have narratives and stuff like that. But the saying in the news, you probably heard this in movies, if it bleeds, it leads. Not if it's sunny. And like nobody says, it's a nice sunny day outside and puppy dogs and kitty cats are having the most wonderful time in meadows and they're prancing. That's not news. That's boring. But isn't that what people actually really want? To be kind to people? To have like nice interactions? No, it's all about gas prices and inflation and murders. And then they leave certain things out. Like they'll only put certain murders in there. But, and I don't necessarily think reporting it causes more of a problem. I think it just causes more fear. But when you're exposed to negative messages all day long, that's got to do something. I don't understand. I'm not a psychologist, but that's got to do something to the psyche and to the person, right? Like, you know, we know that there's plenty of evidence to suggest, and a lot of people say they've proven it, that if you put someone in solitary confinement, it'll screw them up in jail. They put them in solitary to, you know, save them from themselves or save them from the crowd or whatever. But that's psychologically not good. There's a lot of stuff we don't know about the brain. When I went to college, we got sat down by this one instructor. And he wanted to pick our brain for about 10, 15 minutes. And so we booked an appointment with him. And he said, I want you to answer the question, who you are and how you got here. I go, okay, cool. So I got my 15 minutes with him. And he said, so who are you? How'd you get here? And I started to talk about the potential for the human brain and how much we actually don't know about it still. We think we know everything, but we don't. We don't even know what's at the bottom of the deepest ocean, really, right? So I started to say, I think the human brain has a lot of potential. And he goes, well, how do you know this? And I said, well, first of all, I've been experimenting. Every time I stub my toe or hurt my finger or something like that, I experiment with the pain. Not in a weird way. I just go, I remember getting my thumb cut with a key holder one time. A friend, I was giving it to her, and I hurt my thumb, and it started to bleed. It was really painful. And I thought, I'm going to do that thing that I saw in the show, The $6 Million Man. The guy got shot. He's in a pool, and he concentrates on getting out of the pool, even though he's shot. And that fascinated me. I was like, is that possible? So it started to open up these thoughts about the potential for the human brain. So I told this instructor about these experiences I had about controlling pain. If I stub my toe, I'd concentrate to see if this is possible. And I imagine the pain shrinking to the size of a pin. And it's still there, but it's now the size of a pin and not the size of a boulder. And I'd be able to carry on with my day. So I've been able to do that with most superficial injuries, is to ignore the pain.
Do you think you can take this mind manipulation, this self-manipulation to kind of disappear the pain? Do you think you can reflect this in film? On TV nowadays, you'll see that there are serial killers that are being praised because of their intelligent minds. The viewers who are watching these shows are being convinced that a serial killer is somewhat positive because of how smart he is. This is conditioning viewers to see negativity in somewhat of a positive way, which I see as a form of manipulation.
That's interesting because when you think of like, somebody's tracking down a serial killer, they're a profiler. They have to get into the mind of the serial killer. And in the movie Parents, there's a movie Parents in 1989 that was made and directed by Bob Balaban. I thought it was a good story. A lot of people think it's a piece of junk, or they've never heard of it or something, right? Or they walk in and they go, "What the hell are you watching?" You know, it's one of those films. Visually fantastic, story-wise great. The audio is not so great in some points, but most of it is a good story. But Randy Quaid tells his son, because his son has trouble sleeping at night, and he goes, there's one dark place where we all have to be very careful. Do you know where that is? And he raises his hand and points to his mind. So when a profiler has to get into the mind of a serial killer to figure out what makes them tick or what motivates them, that's a scary place. That puts the audience in a very scary position, because you start thinking, back to the Aristotle thing, you arouse fear and pity and therefore achieve a catharsis of, so it's a thinking about it. It's bringing the elephant into the room, or being able to see the elephant to actually think about, holy crap, if I were a serial killer, but you're thinking, no, but I'm not thinking that way, therefore I can't be a serial killer, because it disgusts me to actually think about this person doing that to somebody, which is a good sign. But they're exposing this, like, How many serial killer movies and TV shows do you think there are? There's tons.
A lot.
There's a lot of cop shows, a lot of serial killers, a lot of...
Scream.
It begs the question. Is that what people want, or is that what people think, the producers think they want? Oh, that was popular, let's do it again. It's like, if they know what they're doing, that's kind of scary. If they don't know what they're doing, that's kind of scarier. Because they're like exposing people to this negative stuff over and over, and people get addicted to it. Like, I like horror movies, but I don't like just for the sake of slashing someone and, oh, did you see that kill? Final Destination and all those, Saw. I didn't like anything past Saw 1. I think Saw 1 was a good story. I need a good story. I gotta have a reason for the horror. So when I made my horror movie, there was a reason for it. It was to show the power shift, and it was to show how a sick serial killer is making his own movie and manipulating people. It's about he's manipulating by lying to them, and he's such a good liar, they fall for it. So are you going to fall for these things? Are you going to believe everything? So really down to the core of that movie is don't believe everything you hear.
Very true.
Because you can get a lot of trouble.
That brings me to the question of the pandemic.
Yeah.
There was a movie on Netflix that was about COVID-19 and how,
Songbird?
Yeah, and how it could be treated. But immediately COVID-19 hit, Netflix actually deleted it. So what do you think? Why do you think it was deleted?
Because
in
somebody
the movie,
at the top,
it was specifically mentioned COVID-19.
Because someone at the top said, I don't want you to show that. It's censorship. There's been so much censorship over the past 2 years. Like you can't, and not only censorship, self-censorship. Where you can't, if you start talking about it, someone's either going to complain, you shouldn't talk about that, or they're going to go, yeah, right, I don't want to hear about it. Like I remember talking about AIDS years ago with a friend, and I said, I have a plausible theory about AIDS. And he goes, don't even bother. Don't even bother. So now I know with that person, I could never bring that topic up again because I know exactly how he feels about it. Because it's like my brother with religion. I'm not religious myself, and I have no problem with religion at all. I think there's a lot of good stories and a lot of good lessons that can be taught through religion, as long as people aren't using it for nefarious purposes. Religion is a good thing. It gives somebody something to believe in, like my sister said. I need something to believe in. I'm not sure she's like Christian or anything, but my brother became born again. And I said to him, have you seen the movie Zeitgeist? Because a lot of people misinterpret Zeitgeist. And the first part is about religion. It's about the Christianity and different religion. Well, especially Christianity and the development of it and all the stories and whatever. And then it goes into the money system, and then it goes into 9/11. Starts talking about three major topics. Christianity or religion in general, 9/11 and the money system. And people are like, what's that? Why would they put all those things together? It's like, I'm sorry, did you watch it only one time? If you watched Zeitgeist only one time, you didn't watch it enough. If you keep watching it, you realize there's a good statement made. He's saying something. Peter Joseph is saying something, right, through these stories about control. He's talking about social control, and it makes a lot of sense. Well, when I mentioned this to my brother, I said, have you seen Zeitgeist? Well, the first section is about Christianity. And he goes, I watched 5 minutes of it, and I shut it off. I'm like, why didn't you just watch it? No. There's a lot of people that are doing that these days, more and more. They're just saying, no, I don't want to hear it. So the average person now has to self-censor. And they go, well, I'm not going to bother bringing that up because, I risk it being too hot a topic. So therefore, I won't say anything, which makes censorship go to a whole new level where you have self-censorship, where people are censoring themselves and nobody's talking about certain things that they should be talking about. And during the whole pandemic thing, the guy out, I forget his face, out in the East Coast, he said one of the reasons to have a lockdown and to keep people out of parks, one of the reasons is to stop them talking about it. He said this on the news. I'm like, I knew it.
Wow.
To stop people from talking about it. Because, outside in the parks, they weren't seeing like spread and anything like that, right? Inside they were, but outside they weren't. But they were keeping people out of parks anyway. I'm just like, why?
That's so true.
Yeah, stop them talking about it. He said it on the air. I've got the clip.
There's no spread, but inside is spread, but I want you to stay inside.
Yeah. It's so I'm not going to go on about the pandemic itself, but just the censorship. You say the wrong words on YouTube, you get a warning, or you're shut down for 2 weeks or something like that. So people got to be very careful. So that's why I want to do this film as an allegory and not come out and say something. And certain people are going to understand what I'm talking about, and some people are going to go, it was a neat sci-fi futuristic sort of what might happen in the future. It's like, I'm saying something. I'm not doing it for the heck of it. I'm actually making a statement, and it's a serious statement. And I'm not going to come out and say exactly what it is. I'm just going to show you, much like Oliver Stone did in Natural Born Killers, which was the first episode for me of Black Mirror, that show. The first episode of, hey, society, this is you, right? And when you watch something like Natural Born Killers, and Mickey, who's the main serial killer, Mickey and Mallory are the husband and wife serial killers. They go on a killing spree, and people are like, Mickey and Mallory, we love you. And we got Mickey and Mallory bubblegum trading cards, and they become like celebrities, but they're serial killers. And then Mickey has this interview with the news in prison, and he rationalizes murder. And it's scary because what he's saying is like not necessarily untrue. Like in the animal kingdom, murder is normal. And we just happen to think we're evolved more than we are, whatever. And I personally think that the human being is definitely more evolved than animals. At least for like cerebrally, like we can rationalize and stuff. Like my dog, I could say, hey, I'm going to be back in an hour. She's not going to go, okay, well, that's cool. That's only an hour. No, she's going to go, where are you going? One of the main problems in our society is people are too impulsive. They don't sit there and think about, what if I grab this, before I grab this, whatever it is, what's going to happen? Like you go to the checkout line of the grocery store and you see the bubble gum and the candy bars. Oh, Reese's Pieces. All right. Do you need them? No, but they're taunting you. They're manipulating you. I went to a conference once. So it's part of my work as a technical director, a AV guy. And did you know there's a map to a grocery store?
No.
Yeah. And they say, if you want to stay healthy, shop around the edge.
Wow.
All the processed stuff is in the middle. Yeah. First thing you see when you go to the grocery store, fruits and vegetables, right? So you got that fresh stuff there. And then your breads are around the aisles. Everything's around the aisles. And then you get your frozen section. But all the junk is in the middle. And they know your route because they analyze your route. There's ways to analyze. I've been to digital conferences where it's about analysis of people and habits and stuff like that. And how they're following people around and make suggestions for them. And so there's no mistake. They're putting that stuff up there to taunt you. They want to sell that. Those are fast nickels. I learned this concept called fast nickels at the music store I worked at, Steve's Music on Queen West. Back in the 90s, 89 to 95, I worked there. And, they were talking about how they operate on fast nickels. I'm like, fast nickels? Yeah, we sell cheap guitars. We sell the expensive ones, but they don't move fast enough. Those are slow quarters. We'll sell them, but they're not going to move as fast as the fast nickels. More people want to pretend or learn to play guitar and not actually go through with it. So they're not going to invest $1,200. They might invest $300 for a starter guitar, a decent starter guitar, and go, well, it's only $300 and it's been collecting dust in the corner. It doesn't matter to the music store. You bought it. Hey, they win, right? So fast nickels, fast turnaround, because at inventory time, and I learned this working there because we had to do inventory, they get taxed on their inventory. So the new models of stuff coming out, they got to get rid of the old stuff. So they're going to do all these tricks to get rid of the old stuff and bring the new stuff in, right?
Yes, which can be related back to film, right? The production of a film, I heard you say the grocery route, right? It's almost like the director must know the route and place the route for their audience to follow in order for them to be manipulated into their story. And I think that when you said about the car language, you can't exactly talk to them because there are windows, but you can beep, right? So It's almost like, do you think the director could be beeping when they put key terms into their productions? Do you think that they're almost trying to communicate with the audience in some points?
Sometimes I think that's true. But I think the director does want to lead the audience exactly where they want them to be. Throw a red herring in there to trick them, right? But it's all about, this is the story, and I'm hoping you follow this story to the very end. And I'm hoping to, in a lot of cases, trick you with a twist. That's why you got to have a good twist. It's like, twist leaves people with something like, oh, I didn't see that coming. That's a good twist. Like The Sixth Sense. You're following this journey. Who is this guy? And at the very end, have you seen The Sixth Sense?
Yeah, yes.
Have you seen this? Okay, I won't ruin it for you. But the meme.
Check it. I see it often, but the cover album, the cover, whatever, is not.
Do you know what happens at the end of The Sixth
I haven't
Sense?
seen it. It's
Okay.
just the cover. The movie poster is not appealing to me.
Well, I See Dead People was the meme, right? It was the tagline, I see dead people. And so people kept repeating that, I see dead people. Just like in The Warriors, can you dig it? Was like the meme of the day, right? Anyway, going back to The Sixth Sense, or movies like that, I didn't see the end coming. I don't know how I didn't see it. Became so obvious. It was like, oh crap, okay, you got me, right? And in the movie The Others with Nicole Kidman, I got it halfway through. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. I know exactly who these people are. I knew because the husband came home from the war. And he went back through the fog. And I was like, okay, you just ruined it for me. In Gravity, I loved Gravity, sound design-wise and picture-wise. I think it was a great film. Story-wise, it was a little lacking because when George Clooney was in the spaceship, I was like, okay, I see. I understand his exact position now without ruining for you. I know exactly what's happening. So I got it. They gave it away, and I don't think they intended to give it away. I'm not sure. But then in the movie The Village, the first time I saw The Village, I watched it, and I watched the end, and I went, oh, really? That's kind of a cheesy ending. And then people were saying, oh, that was so silly, that ending. And then as I thought about it more and more, I thought, no, it was actually way better than we thought. Because people, when they see that story and they got that twist ending, they're like, that's not a very good twist. It's like, as an allegory, it's a fantastic twist.
So it's almost like you're saying it's not about what the viewer knows, but it's about what they don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of true, what they don't know. What we don't want them to know certain things, or we don't want them to think too much about what they don't know yet. They're like trying to figure it out. We want to keep their attention so that they follow through with the story and we surprise them with red herrings and everything. So they're like, okay, well, anything could happen now, as opposed to they know what's going to happen. And that's tricky because there's so many, people have seen so many movies by now. And there's been so many twist endings. You got to be really clever to write a twist these days for the modern moviegoer because there's smart people watching these films. Not always, but a lot of smart people watching these.
So you want your viewer to grasp onto the concept, but you don't exactly want them to have the full platter, right? You want them to almost figure out the last maybe 25% of this information for themselves, right?
Piece by piece.
To formulate an opinion.
Piece by piece. Oh, and the opinion too. The opinion, what you mentioned there is interesting because with certain films and certain ways of saying something without directly saying it, right? Allegories. You can have people have an opinion, their own opinion about the story, as opposed to, well, going back to Terry Gilliam saying a neat little package wrapped up for you. People they can come up with theories. I know why this happened. I know why that character did this. They have theories as opposed to everything being spelled out for you.
And that's why I feel like it's a great idea for this kind of interpretation, opinion making to happen. Because if you were to make a sequel, it would make people want to watch it more to figure out those theories that they made in the first one.
Yeah, to figure out how far it would go. Yeah.
To figure out if they're right.
Going back to The Descent, they opened it up for a sequel in the North American ending. And there was a sequel. Was the sequel any good? Yeah. I found the first one to be really riveting and a good story, but the European version, not the North American version. But the way they ended the North American version not only made you feel safer, a little bit safer, but opened it up for a perfect sequel. Whereas the first one kind of, how would there be a sequel to this? Because of what happened at the end, you might think, oh, they're forgotten about, like, who would ever discover them? What are these things underground? How did they get there? That's the one thing that I guess it's partly a MacGuffin in a way, but maybe not. I don't know. We'd have to debate that. But these creatures that are underground, because it's a creature feature, why are they there? We never got the answer to why they're there. We just have to. This is where that first movie in the European ending was perfect, because you can now discuss, where do you think those creatures came from? So underground, there's kind of humanoids. They can't really see bright. They can see in the dark and whatever, and they don't have fur or anything. They're completely naked, and they screech and holler like pigs, and they will tear you up. They will kill you. And there's piles of blood and bones. You see there's bones and blood everywhere. So what have they been doing at night? Coming up and through secret things and stealing, like, humans and animals and eating them down there? But how did these humanoids end up down there? To me, that's worth probably an hour-long discussion. Because we could come up with theories about why they're down there. And the first movie doesn't tell you that. They just end, and it ends with the woman making peace with herself. Right? And I like movies like that people, like the ending of Jacob's Ladder. Jacob's Ladder is a great story. I didn't see the ending coming. It was a twist. And the character made peace with himself. Right? In Gladiator, the character makes peace with himself. So when I made that short experimental film with the clown in the park, the depressed clown, he makes peace with himself. He's actually okay with his life. He finally discovers that what he was doing in his life was important, and that, he's ready to live again, and then he gets hit by the bike and he's dying on the sidewalk, and he's like passing the torch. Does your life have meaning? What does your life mean? And what do you leave behind? Which is great for filmmaking. Because if you make 5 films, let's say you only made 5 films, and they were really good stories. They might not have won awards or whatever, but they're good stories. When you eventually get older, and when you eventually die, you've left that behind. Other people could watch that, and they could partly experience you as a writer, as a director, because they could understand maybe what was on your mind at the time. And you're not there to say anything. They have to now guess, and they have to make theories, come up with theories about why you did certain things in your films. Like, I could tell you why I made this first experimental film, which by today's standards, I actually can't show it because I think it's a little too risque, in the sense that it's a very challenging watch, and some things you see, you're like, why would you show that image? Because that's what's happening on the streets. I was only showing what was happening on the streets. It's called urban craziness disorder. It's going to be locked away. If anybody ever wants to see it, I'll say you can, but you absolutely cannot share it. It is only for you. It's a movie for you to see. And I don't know, it's not the best thing I've ever done. I mean, it's one of my first digital things that I did on digital film or digital video. What's that?
But it is authentic.
Authentic?
Like original. Like
Yeah, I'm saying something in there. So it's an experimental. It goes by a song. It goes by music. And it's called Urban Craziness Disorder, UCD. How society drives people nuts. So I took, I got this guy juggling balloons on the street as a clown. He just had a clown nose and a thing on, and he's juggling balloons, and he's doing all sorts of crazy stuff. Like, he's gone nuts, basically. And then every time it cuts back to what's happening on the street, you realize the overload of information. How people, protesting about abortions, and they have the signs with the aborted fetus on it. And it's like, if you do that, if you hold up the abortion sign, and I showed one because, hey, I got video. There's someone holding up an abortion sign, and it's really gross, and it's disturbing. So that's in there. And there's a few things in there. It's not like completely disturbing, but there's some images where it's like, I don't want to show it.
Completely disturbing. I see it often when I drive around.
The abortion signs? Yeah. And you know what? If you're holding that sign up, and let's say I don't have a daughter or son or anything, but let's say I'm walking them down the street, I don't want them to see that. I mean, save that stuff for like your own, whatever, make a PowerPoint presentation to show to a group, but now you're pissing me off. So if you stand there and go, I'm against abortion, I'm like, okay, good. I have no problem with you being against it, because you do have a point. It is a living being at a certain point, and that argument can go on and on and on, and nobody's ever going to win that argument. That's how I think of it. And I think, believe what you want. I wrote a song in college called Do What You Do, Have What You Have, Be What You Be. It doesn't matter to me, because I liked Rocky Horror Picture Show. Some people thought, Rocky Horror Picture Show, like men in lingerie. I'm like, it's about the story. People miss the core of the story. Or my major takeaway from the story was Be it, don't dream it. So from a young age, growing up where I grew up in Pembroke, Ontario, small town Pembroke, Ontario. You know Pembroke? I grew up there until the age of 11, and it was, there's some shitty people there. Yeah. Anyway, so I grew up observing this going, I'm never going to act that way. Like my stepfather was not a very nice person. And I'm like, I got some takeaways from that. You can either follow that thought or that way of thinking and treating people like crap. And well, I got treated like crap, so I'm going to treat you like crap. Or you could say, I'm not going to be that person. And that's always been my decision, is to not do that. So when somebody holds up a sign and it's got this big abortion, like they're trying to make a point. I'm making a point. Yeah, you're making a point, but you piss me off. Now I hate you even more.
Making the right points in the wrong way.
Like you can make a point. Like, when somebody holds up traffic, and we had this group 2 years ago. They went to Young and Bloor, and they held up traffic for animals being treated badly in a country halfway around the world. If everybody did that, first of all, the people in the cars are like, oh, what's your organization called? Great, now I hate you. And you're just making it worse. You're making it worse. Okay, you're trying to prove a point, but you're making it worse. So you got to be selective about how you protest. You got to protest without pissing people off.
You got to be selective about what you put in your film without pissing people off, right?
Yes. Yeah, because you don't want to turn off the viewers if you make your film and you put something in there that offends them. You risk the thumbs down or the low ratings because you've offended them. So you got to be clever in the way you present the material. And you could even have like some sort of artist statement, like if it's experimental like the one I did, have some sort of artist statement in there to basically explain why you're seeing what you're seeing. Or don't let them know why, and then let them make their own guess and theories and whatever. And you know what? Rodrigo, I forget his last name, who directed Koyaanisqatsi, big experimental film with images and music. He said people are either going to love it or think it's the biggest piece of crap. It doesn't matter. He's saying what he's saying. So there's that side of it. Do you want to be too careful, or do you just want to say it and forget about it? And that's it. That's my message.
The best way to go about it is the way Hitchcock did the Psycho movie, the bathroom scene. He was able to tell the story. The girl was naked and she was murdered, but it wasn't. You get the message, but it wasn't disturbing.
But you didn't see.
Yeah.
You didn't see the knife hit. You didn't see the naked woman.
But it wasn't disturbing.
And it was tricky at that time. Trickier at that time. Like even Elvis Presley. He couldn't shake his hips. Don't shake your hips on TV, or you got to frame him so you don't see those hips shaking, because that's bad. Why? Why is that bad? Oh, all the women are going to go nuts because he's shaking his hips. It's like, see, that's censorship. That's soft censorship. It's like only show enough, but don't show too much. And the censors who make decisions on movies and give it ratings, the ratings group. There's a movie called This Film Has No Rating. It's a documentary on how they rate films, and it's a mysterious little group of people that are making decisions. Oh, the blood's too red. Oh, you said the F-bomb too many times. It's like, how many times is too many? More than, where do you get this formula for, oh, you said it 7 times. X-rated. Or, oh, you showed a nipple. Oh, okay. So they're going to give it an R rating, but it was only 1 nipple, and it was very quick. It doesn't matter. Like, where's the metrics? Sometimes these people that are in control make these decisions for us to save us from something. It's like treating us like children. Oh, don't look at that. Don't look at that.
It's almost like you want to see them make movies.
Yeah, right.
Like they represent blood with colors now in most movies. Right. Instead of the blood like you used to, now you just see colors.
Well, in the Scary House thing, I purposely wanted to show splashes of red light and no actual blood, because there wasn't going to be no blood in the movie. It was all just red lights to show the absence of blood, because I wanted to get away with the jump scares and no blood. It was all going to be sound, which was scary, and no visuals, which was scary. But since the actors couldn't make the second weekend, I rewrote it and I wrote blood. One more thing. I want to go wrap it up. Okay, so talking about, I'd like to make a movie about like about control and stuff like that. But again, not directly saying it. And I'm just so sick of people like protecting society. We're protecting you. Everybody's going to wear thick rubber shoes. Why? We don't want anyone to stub their toes. We're protecting you. But I don't want to wear the thick rubber shoes. They don't look good. Yeah, but you have to, because we want you to be safe. It's almost like a distrust that people are going to make the right decisions. I can make the right decision. And some people make bad decisions. They'll, base jump or something like that, or, skydive, and that's a risky thing, or bungee jump or something. Are you going to like stop everybody from making their own personal decisions? Like, how far is this going to go where people are trying to coddle the society?
Well, as long as they can manipulate viewers.
As long as they can manipulate. Yeah. And you see, I guess the best allegory, I don't even know if it's an allegory because it was directly saying it. The movie They Live was very famous. John Carpenter directed one of his gems. He didn't make gems all the time, not from my point of view, but he made a couple of really good gems. The Thing and They Live and a few others. But They Live, Roddy Piper, who was the actor, finds these glasses. There's a whole story to it, but this church is giving out glasses, right? And so he puts a pair of glasses on. He looks up. The billboards all of a sudden turn to consume, obey. He takes them off and he sees an advertisement. He puts them back on. Consume, obey. And all these messages in magazines. He's like, holy crap. The hell's going on? And then he could see certain people are aliens. He takes them off. Normal woman puts the glasses on. Alien again. So he now sees through society, and he's trying to convince his friend Keith David, put these glasses on, man, you got to see what's going on. I'm not putting on the glasses. Put on the glasses. And there's a famous fight scene that goes on for like 5 minutes in an alley where he's trying to get him to put on the glasses, and he won't put on the glasses until finally he gets the glasses on him, forces them on. He goes, look! And finally the guy goes, you're right. So I guess that is allegorical, because it's not necessarily about the aliens. It's about convincing, in this case anyway, that scene, convincing people to see what's actually happening. And that, at that time, we're talking about our movies made to plant seeds, or our movies made to make statements about the future. And when you look at They Live, and I don't recall watching in-depth documentary with John Carpenter about They Live, but why he did it and everything, but there's definitely a message there. And it's, when you go back and look at it, you're like, he said this in the 1980s, right? And it's just like, what he's saying is, open your eyes, be receptive. Like I downloaded a copy of the Quran. I've got a copy of the Bible somewhere. I don't follow these things. But I have no problem looking to see the messaging. I want to know. So I'm not going to get upset by going, nothing to see here, can't see that, right? I want to know. I want to see. I want to understand as much about society as possible. So I will look at stuff I would not normally be into. I would just want to know. I've got a thirst for knowledge, right? So I think the more, like, knowledge is power. I really do think so.
Yeah, because even if it's an opinion at the end of the day, at least you can still be more confident on it if you embrace the information, as opposed to just, basing your opinion off someone else saying something.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know that famous interview with Joe Rogan and Robert Malone? They had this 3-hour interview.
Oh, no, I haven't. That's probably Joe
It was
Rogan's
big.
experience.
It was big because, 50 million people watched it. And Robert Malone was like an inventor of the mRNA technology, right? They're using for the shots and whatever. And they had a 3-hour conversation. And it was a good conversation. I took minutes. Somebody takes minutes of a meeting, they write down the major topics they're talking about. Right. So I took minutes, 3 hours worth of minutes of key topics they were talking about. I asked a good friend I've known for over 20 years. I haven't seen him in quite a while, but I've known him for over 20 years. And I put something about this interview or commented or something on Facebook. He's like, it's just so irresponsible of you for even mentioning this stupid podcast or whatever. And I'm just like, and I got attacked over Facebook over the past couple of years. Anyways, and I said, what's the problem? That interview is just bullshit. Like, whatever. I said, did you watch it? No, and I have no intention on watching it. Then you don't know. I will watch a very, very crappy movie to find out why it's crappy. I'm not going to go, it's too crappy. I want to know, okay, why is it crappy? And what happens? So some people don't want to give stuff like that the time of day. They're just like, no, they shut off, right? So again, a situation where somebody says, I don't have to watch it. Well, then you don't know. And they said, somebody asked me, did you watch it? I said 3 times, and I took notes. I think something like that, like when you watch a movie, a very important movie like Inception, I want to see that more than once. I want to see this fabulous filmmaking, right? I want to see the messaging. I want to dissect it as much as possible. I might not agree with the messaging, but I still want to see it. I got a thirst for knowledge. And I think a lot of people just shut certain doors. Don't go through that door. It's dangerous. Why? It's dangerous for your mind. Okay, why? And you can watch the news and you can turn it off. If there's something bad happening overseas, you know what's something about the news. When you turn to your mainstream media like CBC and NBC and all that, they're showing you what they want to show you. Anyway, I don't want to go on about that. I think I've said enough. This is really long, right?
Yeah, full circle. I don't know. Film.
I've done to my coffee cup.
Yeah.
Destroyed it.
It's so long that your coffee cup destroyed.
It's close to an hour in time.
Yeah, wow.
Cool.
Thank you very much, sir. Buck Moore, everyone.
Talking about life and films and
Life in films and life in films.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Woo!